Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Imam Mark here from Middle Ground, and I'm here to talk about one of the new exciting classes that we have. It's called Arabic from the Qur'an. And about 5 or 6 weeks ago, I started Group 1, and it came about just from several people in the community asking if there would be an opportunity to learn Arabic. So we've been running that for, again, about 5, 6 weeks, and it's been successful. I've had some good feedback. So there was enough demand. So inshallah, in 2 weeks, we'll have the launch of Group 2. And this will be a class for beginners. Kind of will need to be able to at least read the letters. If you haven't got that, then I would really suggest kind of try to at least master the reading of the letters or a basic familiarity on your own. And then, we'll have another group that'll start shortly. So the class introduces some basic fundamentals, like grammar and morphology and stuff. But I wanted to actually talk just briefly about some of my approach to language, period, and to give some insights and maybe a few key concepts for those who are interested if you're going to attend the class. And then, inshallah, we're also going to try to offer up sort of a redacted or a concise web series on it. It won't be a full-blown class, but I'll just try to offer some short videos for those who are maybe either at home or distance learning, just to maybe add to some of your interest or maybe increase your Arabic just a little bit. So there's a couple aspects of the Arabic language that I think are fundamentally underemphasized. I think particularly in the English-speaking world, there has been a tremendous focus on grammar. And while, of course, grammar is an important and an essential part of learning Arabic, I think there are other aspects that need a bit more emphasis. So one of the key concepts or aspects that I think is, one, what is the purpose? We don't always ask this, or like, why am I learning Arabic, or why am I learning a language, right? So, Boku wa Nihongo hanasu to dekiru, right? I speak Japanese, I speak Spanish, a couple other languages. And those, with like French, for instance, I'm probably better at reading than I am at talking. You may learn a language because you want to converse with people, right? In this case, we really are going to be focusing more on the literary aspect, or reading, and in particular, right, reading the Qur'an and generally some religious type of literature like hadith or some other religious texts. So it is going to be a primary emphasis on reading, and spoken will be, something of a secondary emphasis. So that's the purpose that we're learning. One of the other aspects that I think is under emphasized is just vocab, sometimes what we call mufradat. And as I said in the first group, it's great to study all of this grammar, and that takes time. But sometimes it's more important to know what the words are on the page, or as you go, letting the words give you a clue as to what is being said. Whether it's past tense, future tense, passive voice, active voice, these are important nuances, undoubtedly. But if you don't know the basic meaning of the words on the page, then it's like having a very fancy car with no gasoline. You're really not going to go anywhere. So I do tend to emphasize vocab. And then as a subset of vocabulary, I like to also focus on the context, sometimes what's called siyak or siyak al-kalam, And then what do I mean by context, right? So you can, for instance, if you look up in a dictionary, the word kitab, right? You'll see that it means book. But in the Qur'an, kitab almost has really one of two primary meanings. The first is the Qur'an, right? So when you see the word kitab, one of the primary meanings is just a synonym for the Qur'an. And the other, it's just for other revelations, wahi, like Allah may say that He gave Moses a book or something. So the word kitab does mean book, but in its context, it's generally talking about revelation of some sort. Another one, for instance, is the word yom, right? Which, again, if you look it up, it means day. Now, if you take, for instance, in the 70th chapter, Surah Al-Ma'arij, right? Allah talks about ta'aruj al-malaikatu wal-ruh, right? The angels and essentially Jibreel al-Ruh al-Quddus, that they, tarju ilayhi, they ascend to him, fi yawmin kana مقداره 50,000 سنة, right? So Allah talks about the angels, what they go on this, they journey, they're ascendant, right, through the heavens. Fi yawmin, a day of, its count for us, right? Linear time would be like 50,000 years or something like this, right? But then in other places, a matter of fact, even later on in the Qur'an, Allah says what? وَيَوَدُّ الْمُجْرِمُ, right? And the disobedient of Allah, literally the criminals, that they hope to try to bargain for their souls to escape what? عَذَابَ يَوْمَئِذٍ, right? To escape the punishment on that day. So in that case, Yom almost refers to what? Yom al-Qiyamah, right? The day of judgment. So again, context is very important, right? And then sometimes Yom might just mean like literally day. So context as a subcategory of mufradat is one of the things that I like to focus on and teach. The other one that I think doesn't get taught a lot, that is sometimes considered to be an advanced field of study, is something that's called morphology or sarf, ilm al-sarf or as-sarf, right? And morphology, to me, the word is a little, I don't want to say it's misleading. Obviously, it means to morph and to change. But what I really like to call this is pattern recognition, right? So in the beginning, often you'll look at, maybe a page of Qur'an or something, and it just looks like a bunch of mumbo jumbo. It sometimes becomes overwhelming. As you notice, I've been writing without any of the tashkil or any of the vowel markings. That's a good habit to break, so I try to break people from that, from jump. And I think when a lot of people, especially coming non-native speakers, learning the language, they're coming from trying to read the Qur'an, and that can be a visually overwhelming experience. So they're trying to, especially a lot of the masahif or a lot of the copies of the Qur'an today are these tajweed Qur'ans. So they have not only the huruf, the letters, but then they have all of the diacritical marks, the fatha, the dhamma, the kasra, the sukun, the shadda. And then on top of that, they have extra ones like med, right? So you know how to make a longer count. And then they're color-coded, whether you're doing ikhfa or idgham, some of the rules of tajweed. And then they have the other marks of where, you have to stop or you should stop or you can keep going, right? The different markers for stopping. So that can be a visually overwhelming experience. So what I like to also do is just teach people about pattern recognition. And you'll see that Arabic is in many ways a modular language, right? So you might see words like Hakim, Alim, Khabir, on and on. And then even Kabir, Saghir, right? You start to, orally hear there's this pattern, right? This we call a wazn, right? Or the awzan, meaning that its words are constructed on particular forms. So if you see a word, right, that is in this form, right, of which we would call right, in the form of fa'il, right? So if you take out, we often will use fa, ayn, and lam as kind of like a template or a stand-in, right? And then you just apply essentially the diacritical marks or the vowel markings over, right? So if I gave you, right, for instance, like sheen, kaf, and ra on the form of fa'il, where it comes shakir, you'll just know how to pronounce it. And in fact, you don't need to see the vowel markings. You just know that this is the form. So this is one of the aspects that I also like to get into because it helps with the acquisition of vocabulary, right? Vocabulary can sometimes be daunting because it's, if you're approaching it this one by one by one by one, this becomes somewhat difficult and a little bit overwhelming. But as you learn the patterns, you'll also start to learn what are some of the meanings or suggestions behind those patterns, like an adjective, like often, right, kabir, saghir, azim, khabir, right? These are essentially adjectives, and this is a common form for an adjective, right? So even if you don't know the particular root, right, then you can just look up in your dictionary, okay, go to sheen, kaf, ra, and then go down, and if once you get essentially the root meaning, right, to be thankful, okay, now you understand the meaning of it if you're able to, again, get into what the science is called sarf. So pattern recognition is extremely important. And then the last part, since it is, right, Arabic from the Qur'an, right, we try to particularly go through the last juz of the Qur'an, which is the most common section of the Qur'an that people are going to have memorized the Qur'an from. So we go through and we use that kind of as the data set, and we will examine its grammar, its vocabulary, the context, and also parse out the forms that are used therein, so that hopefully if you haven't memorized the whole juz'ah, if you go on and continue, or just in your reading, like it'll begin to develop almost a kind of intuition, right? So if you're in another section and you're like, oh, okay, I'm not quite, but I know that this form suggests one thing or it suggests another. So you begin to build up essentially a kind of pattern recognition, and you begin to develop a kind of intuition about it. So that's our class that we have called Arabic from the Qur'an. Again, go and check on our website for the exact start date, approximately 2 weeks from now. That will be on a Saturday, and I believe the start time will be at noon, and it'll run about an hour, so from about noon until 1. And that'll be for Group 2. Group 1 is currently running from 10 to about 11:30. So inshallah, I hope this has been helpful, giving a few little insights. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment box or drop us a line, and inshallah we hope to see you at the center. Imam Mark from Upland from Middle Ground. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.